So the past 2 US presidents have had DO physicians as their personal doctors, and they've had high regards, even going through COVID and helping cure the presidents through COVID. So they're still confusing on like what DOs do, what MDs do, what's the difference? I get this question asked all the time. People are like, what's the difference in DOs? What's the difference in MDs? What should I go to? What scores do I need? What do I actually need to know going into it? What's the repercussions of going to one way or the other? So all these questions I get all the time, and I kind of wanted to make a video that can kind of simplify this for you guys, get a brief understanding on what DOs and MDs do, and give you clarification so you know what to do. So anyways, I'm Kartik Goswami. I'm a 4th year MD student in Northern California, and my whole goal is to give back to you guys, those of you guys in my shoes, to make your lives easier. I want to help medical education by making it more accessible, affordable, and achievable. That's our motto at The Doctor Journey, and that's our website, thedoctorjourney.com, where we give back to people in medical education. So if you have any questions ever on your medical journey, please feel free to email me at Kartik, K-A-R-T-I-K, at thedoctorjourney.com. I'll be happy to answer. But anyways, let's get into what exactly is the difference in a DO physician and an MD physician. So we'll start with the main idea, the main differences, the main difference in philosophy. MD physicians, their main goal in treatment, they're also called allopathic physicians, is to treat people with illnesses. They come in with an illness, and an allopathic doctor is trained on, okay, how do we fix your illness? How do we get you better, and how do we get you back home? And now this is the most known degree in the world. MDs are universally known, and almost any country you go to, even if they have different acronyms, they convert over to an MD if you come to the US. MD, or medical doctor degree, is a pretty universal degree that's well known throughout the world and can get you in basically anywhere as a physician. So that's the most well-known one. Very basic principles. They want to take you in your illness, fix your illness, make sure you're healthy enough to go back home. Now, DO physicians, or osteopathic physicians, have a different philosophy. They want to go out there and treat the mind, the body, and the soul. That's what their core tenets are, or at least that's what the core tenets were when A.T. Still developed a whole osteopathic medicine in the late 19th century. Now, A.T. Still has schools named after him. I'm sure you might have heard of osteopathic schools named A.T. Still, and there's like multiple branches. But anyways, that's a sidetrack. The whole thing is A.T. Still's message was mind, body, soul, and making sure they're all treated wholly. And so osteopathic physicians in training and how they're taught are focused on treating like a whole body approach, taking into account everything of the body. So they're not just focused on the illness itself, they're focused on all the other systems that may be affected or may have caused the illness. So that's what their philosophy is. Now, off from philosophy onto the schooling, the difference is really not much. Now, osteopathic schools and allopathic schools, so DO and MD, they actually go on the same curriculum. They learn the same things. You learn all about the heart, lungs, etc., all the organ systems, all the drugs, all the microbiology, which I didn't know what that was before I got into med school, I'll be honest. Microbiology is like all the bacteria. You might have heard of like Staph aureus, the most common one, and stuff like that, like a staph infection. So you learn all of that in DOs and MDs, and the curriculum is all tailored around getting you educated enough to do well as a physician, but also to do well in your boards, which we'll get into in like just a couple seconds. But the main difference in the curriculum is osteopathic physicians, they're trained in osteopathic manipulative medicine, OMM, as some people call it. And OMM is kind of a cool thing. It's like chiropractic plus medical combined. So they do like physical body maneuvers, physical things that are supposed to alleviate problems, issues in a person's body. Usually it's mostly musculoskeletal, but it could be as far as like headaches, migraines. I've heard of some other things as well. So yeah, they do this chiropractic medicine mix that actually is pretty cool, and I was actually pretty interested in learning. Now onto the board exams. For those who don't know, board exams are the main exams you take in medical school that get you licensing for being a legal physician in America. Now, MD students, they take the USMLE STEP exams. That's how they get their degree. They have to take those exams, while DO students, they must take the COMLEX exams. The difference between them, again, they cover the same content you learn in med school, and they go through it in a very similar question style. Some say it's super similar, just a tad bit different. Some say COMLEX is a tad bit more confusing or vague, but essentially it's the same test with very similar timings, very similar breaks, etc. The only difference is COMLEX testing on OMM. So the chiropractic medical mix is also kind of tested in theory on questions. That's literally the only difference in the board exams. So if you're studying at that school, you're learning the material, you're going to be prepared for either or exam. Now, there is a caveat. DO students or osteopathic physicians do tend to take USMLE STEP as well. And for those reasons, we will get into a little bit. So let's get on with it. And if you're liking this video so far, hit the subscribe button, comment below if you have any questions. It really helps the channel, trying to help as many people on the medical journey as possible. We need more doctors in America, and the goal is to give them as much information as possible so they can get into the career, not have as hard of a time as I did. Anyways, back to the video. So now in terms of residency, specialty, after medical school, that's what people always ask. They're like, can I get in as a DO? Can I get into other schools? Because the stigma is usually around DO schools. So as a DO or an MD, you can get into basically any specialty of your choice. Now, big caveats on this, and we're going to show some data in a little bit, but the main thing is MDs usually are preferred in the competitive specialties over DOs, but in the generic specialties and the mid-level specialties, usually it's about the same that get accepted to them. And usually the competitive residencies, still to this day, which is unfair, but they only accept USMLE STEP. Now these are usually the higher end spectrum. A lot is changing. People are starting to take complex as well. So DO students tend to take USMLE STEP as well in addition to complex. So they have to take 2 board exams, which does suck. But good news is, again, they cover very much the same concepts, very much the same question style, just osteopathic manipulative medicine. So what DO students do is usually take USMLE STEP first, then study OMM material, and then take complex, and then boom, they're done. So that's usually how they do it. And if you want to be really competitive as a DO student in this time frame, in this era of medicine we're in, USMLE STEP usually is a good idea to take as well. I do assume in the future they are having talks of having complex and USMLE STEP become one test, because again, testing very similar things. So when that future comes, that'll be great for everyone. But as of right now, if you want to be extra competitive as a DO student, take USMLE STEP. So I'm going to have a table popped up right here to show you the differences in the specialty for DOs and MDs and how they get in. Now, as you see, top of the top, neurosurgery, big difference. This is the most hardest specialty to get into. Most students who apply of any degree just don't get in, but DO students have even less of a chance than MDs. These are just the facts that are out there. As the competitiveness starts going down, you start seeing the difference lowers down as well. And as you get into the more general specialties, the specialties with more seats, you start seeing the difference is almost negligible. Like there are barely any difference between MDs and DOs. If you're looking like internal medicine, barely a difference as well. So the differences do exist, and you can see dermatology like on the bottom. I don't know why the chart has it that way, but dermatology is really pumped up. It's a very competitive specialty. But as you can see, DOs and MDs, in terms of the more general specialties, you shouldn't have any problem being either or school. You're gonna go really top of the top. MDs do have that big advantage. Like neurosurgery, plastic surgery, they do hold a big advantage. So these are the facts as of right now. And so, if you're going for any of the specialties, like you want to be a cardiologist, you have to go through internal medicine, or you want to be like, a neurology resident, etc. Being a DO or MD really won't make too much of a difference. Now, caveat again, if you're trying to go to the top residency spots of each specialty, like you can do like pediatrics in Harvard or something, again, those top places usually do prefer MDs over DOs. Don't have the stats on exactly every level school, but usually for that goal, you would want to be on the MD side. So yeah, that's kind of the specifics there. Now you're probably wondering, what's the difference of getting into a DO school versus an MD school? What's the applications like? What's average scores like? What's the GPA, etc. all like? So let's get into that right here. I'll have another little chart right here. You can see it right there. Now, DO students use AA commas to apply. It's a different application cycle. You do your personal statement, has about 4,000 characters, and then you have activities section, which is around 600 characters per activity. Now, and then you have an activity section, 600 characters per activity, so they're pretty decent. And it's $195 fee to apply, plus $45 for every additional school after that first school is paid for. And it's $195 fee for the application plus the first school, plus $45 for every additional school. I think the pricing might have changed recently. The pricing might have changed a little bit, but I believe these are the pretty representative pricing that you would have to pay. Now for MD schools, the application is done over AMCAS. And AMCAS, in the personal statement, you have around 7,300 characters. And for the activity section, you have 15 activities. You can list maximum 700 characters per activity. So that is a difference. On AA commas, you can do unlimited. On AMCAS, you can't do unlimited. Now the fee for AMCAS is $170 for the first school plus like $45. Now the average application fee is like $170 for the first school and then another $40 on top of that per school after that. Now again, pricing does vary year by year sometimes, but those are approximates about how much it does actually cost. Now towards the statistics. The statistics are for MD school, the average MCAT is about a 511. These vary year to year, but around a 511 is the average, and the GPA is usually around a 3.7. That's around the average. For DO schools, the average MCAT score is like around a 504. GPA is like a high 3.5, so close to 3.6 range. So those again are averages, those change year over year, but approximately those on the graph right there, those are pretty much the averages. So you do see going into DO school, you don't need as high scores going into them, but that doesn't mean you're not less of a physician. You learn everything you need to know, plus more. The OMM, actually, I personally think is pretty cool. I would love to learn that, honestly. But you're not less of a physician. You have everything you need to know to succeed in medicine. Now, again, if you're aiming for the top of your top specialties, ideally do try to get into MD school, but not all hope is lost if you get into DO school. So weigh your options. These are very important. And then obviously, if you want more options, you have IMG, MD degrees. IMG means International Medical Graduate. So if you go to the Caribbean or a different country, you can do that as well. We're not gonna get into that in this video. I'll make a separate video on whether you should go out of the country. But this is the difference in MD and DO schools within this country, the US, for those of you who are wondering. I always get this question, so hopefully this clarifies a little bit of that. Personally, I think DOs, MDs, is totally fine if you're going for a normal specialty and you just want to do, typical physician stuff. If you're going for the top of the top for everything, try to get into MDs, and not just any MD, try to go for the higher MDs because that'll give you the best shot. Anyways, hope you guys find this helpful, and let me know if you have any questions. In the meantime, stay healthy and stay happy, everyone. Bye-bye.